And hey, I'm push up time. And as you see at the bottom of the screen, I was going to be back in 5 minutes. Well, we're here. Tony's going to be joining us in a moment, guys. He's just helping Mom, which is much more important than coming on here and giving us a hard time. But John is, of course, doing his pattern interrupt, getting himself all up into peak state because we're talking SOPs today and setting up your SOPs. And this is one of John's SOPs, his standard operating procedure for this time every day.
It's push-ups. Okay. We'll see you in the OG Power Hour right there.
Hey, guys. And speaking of Tony, there is our friend.
There's Tony.
How you doing?
Tony, I have a meeting with my VA right beside us on the same camera. She's on Zoom. We're on StreamYard.
Double dipping.
Yeah, I know. I didn't know this could even happen.
Hope you're all having a good day.
Morpheus keeps opening up the door behind me. It's cold outside. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting here. I'm cold. Look what's going on. Ken's talking about snow on the ground. I'm like, oh, that's fine. It's nice here. It's 8 degrees. What happened?
I wish I had 8 degrees. Yeah, I'm about -7 right now myself.
-7?
Yes. Celsius. So for you guys in the States, that's what, about 23 or something like that? Close to that area anyway.
You think so?
Yeah, it's a cool day, man. Well, -32 or 32 is freezing there. So -8 would be, about 22, 20, 23 degrees Fahrenheit. And Pembina River's north of me, so she knows it's coming in from the north. So you're probably going to get as much as I am, Pembina. So SOPs, and John, you were just doing one of your SOPs. But let's switch to the growing topic. What do you do before you go into your grow? I'm going to ask this of both of you guys. What's your standard operating procedure even before you walk into your grow?
Earn permission to lead. What do I do before I go into my grow? The first thing I do when I go into my grow? Really?
No, before you go into your grow.
Yeah. I normally smoke a joint. Mr. Toast Boss is like, yeah, that's what we do. What do you know when you go into your drink? Oh, smoke one.
Okay.
Lights are on. Make sure you got clean clothes on. You don't want to be coming from outdoors or from another grow wearing the same clothes going into a fresh garden. There's always a chance of pathogens or pests showing up.
You know what's really great about that? Because my grow room is right across from my bedroom. I just go in normally time naked. It's easier. That's how I did all my breeding. I had the shower, go in the room, come out, jump in the shower.
Yeah.
Right? Clothing sometimes be a major pain in the ass, especially when you're breeding or you're in another person's room where they want to acknowledge you. And that's the first thing you should do, guys. And I just standard operating procedure. Before you go into any grow room, make sure you're clean. And you smoke the joint first.
Yes. Yeah.
And really looking at your SOPs and looking at how we are today. And we talk about this when I was just at the Grow Up Conference, right, in Victoria. And they have all of these different machines, like Certicraft. Like I'm watching all of these different programs and how they measure by the drop and how they put things in and stuff like that. And I'm just like, that was so bad evidence back in the days. It's like we didn't write that shit down. There's no such thing as a standard operating procedure. It was right
all
there.
In here.
You had to keep it here because you put it on here. It was called evidence. So when someone said, "What's your standard operating procedure?" I'm like, "Oh, hey, you go into your room. It's in code too. Yeah, that shit over there, it's all code. Why? Because someone comes over, they don't get your feeding program." I did a great one the other day. I went into somebody's room. I took a picture of the feeding program on the wall. I put it into ChatGPT and I put it into a certain parameter and a diagram. And I give me a full chart and everything. And I sent it to an email. And it goes, "Fuck, that's awesome."
Mm-hmm.
So now standard operating procedures are quite easy to put into play. First thing you have to do, Talked about it yesterday on the channel. You need to set out your why. Why are you doing it? And then you need to know what you're doing and the goals around it, so you can start establishing the who's going to get you there. And we talk about vision to grow forward. So really, an SOP really starts down to number one thing: what is your why?
Why are you going?
Why are you going? What's your goal behind it?
Yeah.
Now the vision of how you're going to create it. And it's not how. Who is going to help you along the way? What nutrients? What fans? What lights? These are all who's. These are all who's. And putting in a standard operating procedure turns down to turning the knob to the right or to the left. Do I use 1 or 2 teaspoons? Am I using a 5-gallon bucket or a 45-gallon drum?
Yeah.
My standing operating procedure, guys, you want to tell me I tell you what it is? 1 cap, 2 cap.
It was a simple one.
It was very simple. I used Medi 1. So I used 1 cap, and I talked about it into 4 liters of water, and it always came back at 6.2, 6.3, and always gave me a ppm levels around between 980 to 1040. I know this because I did it consistently. Like 2 drops of pH up.
And that ppm difference is coming from temperature. Your probe will read slightly different if you're up 1 degree or 2 degrees. So spot on, like on those ppms. Don't worry about that if you're a new grower. Like you said, there's a range in there that you're going to hit. You don't have to always be at 1,002.
You never will. You never will. You will beat your head against the wall chasing VPD, and you'll do the same thing trying to balance these same parameters. You know, it's like, and I really want to acknowledge you, Mr. Owen. Thank you for saying, because temperature plays a key role. Because when your water is too hot, there's no oxygen in there, right? And then this really takes a major play on what's going on. So those temperatures are the reasons why. It's why we know it. We've been doing it. I've been doing this for 35 years. I don't need an SOP. Give me I don't care what nutrients there. I don't know how to use it.
A little bit of like a visual. Like if you're ever calibrating your pin, it's going to come with a temperature reading that you need to hit, and it'll tell you the numbers at which this 1413 at a specific temperature becomes something like a 1505 instead of a 1413. So trying to shoot for that same number every time without recognizing the fact that there's a temperature differential, that can always kick you in the butt. That's why going simple with something like you said, the Medi 1, that has an A and a B part, and you don't have to mix all the other supplements into it. It's a good way to start if you're getting bored.
1 part. You know what we used to do? I used to boil water with the kettle, and I used 4 2-liter bottles to bring down the water temperature. I talked about that for years in my room. You always have to control that water temperature. So important. That's in one of the major standard operating procedures that I was doing for all over a decade. I talked about why I had a kettle and why we had frozen bottles of water.
Yeah. I remember watching those videos, John.
That was done back in the days, and this came out of Simon Fraser University and UBC. And this had to do with Mr. Newton. It had a lot to do with water temperatures and resin glands and how that was. I mean, it's just full of love, much respect. This is just it's just, I don't know, it's just in us. We're like, yep, Mr. Toad's like, oh yeah. That's honest. No, when you're at this level, we all have the same knowledge. Why? Because it's all the same. It's different.
It doesn't change. If you're using the same source, like water source, I've used the same water for 42 years. It's 113 parts per million, 5.8 to 6.2, depending on if it just rained or not outside, because the water will go through the layers and then hit the reservoirs, and you pick up salinity from the soil because it's been dry so long in my area. So that's why my pH will go from 5.8 to 3.2. Or to 6.2, but it's a perfect pH usually. I don't have to fucking do anything to it unless I'm adding a lot of supplements. Supplements will have some acids in them sometimes. So you'll start adding like an EM1, and an EM1 is an acid base. So that supplement will start to drop your pH. Now that's when I'd have to make sure that I go and double check what the reservoir is showing. And then I would always do that after 24 hours too, because it takes a while for everything to settle in and become perfect when you're doing a lot of supplements and stuff. So going with a basic nutrients is usually a better thing for a grower that's starting out. Even for the first few years, learning a system is the best thing to do instead of trying to find a new system every time that's going to do it better. The problem with the system is usually the grower. They're not using and utilizing the tools they have correctly, and they're trying to have the tool teach them the lesson, and that's just not going to work for you.
You are a beautiful man. Thank you for just explaining that just so profoundly and just like right on par. And it really is, guys. I've seen people change their system every crop and they don't get used to doing something. Repetition, utilization, integration, reinforcement is what? The mother of all skills. Do you think if I was sitting here and I would have just grown it once, I would? No, you have to learn 35 years of experience of growing. 42 years experience of smoking it. Great. I got 52 years almost of experience of drinking a glass of water. I know how to go into a glass of water. I know how. Yeah, I know, but we have the experience. Everybody here knows how to drink a glass of fucking water. Why? Because they've been doing it their whole life. Standard operating procedure. Tony's awesome. Great info, dude. Like,
Yeah.
It was a great way of just being able to profound look at how that is. And it's really easy and simple, guys. A standing operator procedure gives you what? It gives you discipline. It teaches you repetition. Repetition, utilization, reinforcements gets you what? Growth. It gets you what you need. Depending on how you're doing it and how you want to do it and what you're trying to do. What are you trying to accomplish?
That's the why. Yep. Why are you doing it? Why did you start growing in the first place? You know, like that's where, you know, it's not just in the garden that this all works, guys. It's in our own lives as well. And what we're doing, you know, we always disassociate things when it really is the same, no matter what you're trying to accomplish.
Yep.
You know what I'm trying to accomplish? I think I'm at probably have one dab left. So this is going to be a real accomplishment here right now. We're going to try butane, get a dab down, and if worse comes to worse, I'm going to put my dab rig on my stove.
Okay. Well, then did you post your push-ups? Have you posted your push-ups?
I don't think so.
Uh-oh. There's that standard operating procedure we were talking about. John lost it.
Well, dude, Dad yesterday. Oh, Dad. Oh, God. Can I share with you the most amazing thing yesterday?
Sure.
So I handed Dad his cell phone because he doesn't have a cell phone on, right? Never uses it. I would say, Dad, you got to use your cell phone more. He's like, why? So I finally get him to start using his cell phone, which is awesome. And he sees me with ChatGPT. He goes, well, put on that chat thing on my phone. Can you do that? I'm like, sure. So I put it all in there. He goes, what's this? He goes, well, just ask it any question. He goes, he sits here, hit a button, ask it a question. So my dad, being religious, goes, is the Holy Spirit alive and man, or is it ask something about the Holy Spirit? And ChatGPT talked to him. And then he goes, well, that's right. And asked ChatGPT some more stuff on the Bible. And all of a sudden, it wasn't, my dad talks to the pastors all the time. He goes, this doesn't argue with you. I was like, no. It gives you, he goes, that's true. I said, I know. And then I did my push-ups. And then after that, I filmed my dad for like 10 minutes on ChatGPT. And I asked him a question. I said, at 82 years old, did you ever think anything like this would ever be existed? He's like, I watched this on like stuff. Never. He was like blown. That 1 second of when you find out, and it was a standard operating procedure that took him to that next pace. He had no idea. So when you set yourself into play and you put down, you find someone who's doing something, you find that stand. I don't know. I just had to share that with you guys. It was just a system. You had to know how to do it.
Yeah.
Once you did, you could start asking and doing everything you want. You can start growing all the strains that you want. You can start doing everything that you want. You can start really going down that rabbit hole and deciding what you want to do and stuff like that. You know, it was a beautiful moment yesterday to see how far we've evolved and how far we're going and what you can do and what we're doing here. setting the pace for the next future you.
Yeah.
With what?
Standard operating procedures.
And with that, you need some goals around how you're going to do that. Goals set your SOPs. So what's your goal? What's the SOP around that? Who's going to get you there? Don't get caught tearing you how. I used to do that all the time. I thought, how am I going to do this? It's easy. You just do it. Right? No one's going to take you there. No one's going to hold your hand. No one's going to do it for you.
You're the only one in control of your life.
You can go and buy it.
Yeah.
It's good these days. Wow. You can actually just go buy weed legally.
We're lucky, though. There's a lot of places that you can't do that still, unfortunately.
Well, that's where the world's got to change, because it really isn't fair, for one. And life isn't fair anyway. So it really makes no fucking difference. Excuse my language, by the way, guys. Sorry, pardon of my French. The whole thing is you fight for your freedom. We stand more up for cannabis than we do for world peace.
Yeah.
Gather your groups. Go see your politicians. We did it. They could go to jail. Yeah. A lot of my friends went to jail, and a lot of us didn't. A lot of people lost their lives. A lot of them didn't. A lot of people are going forward. A lot of people aren't. Who are you? What do you do? What's your SOP for your life?
Yeah.
Are you being true to who you are and being disciplined to what you want to become? Are you sitting back on the sidelines listening to someone else's SOPs and following their leads because they gave you an SOP and say, here, do it this way? And you have to follow that because they already did the work. They already know how things work. An SOP is telling you how things operate. McDonald's has a standard SOP for every employee who works in there. So if you don't make it one day, someone else can come in and do the exact same job.
Yeah. And that's why they do it that way, man. You're programmed to do this in a certain order, and it's in everything in life. It's in school. It's in everywhere.
It's kind of like the baker. Okay. If this is on YouTube, I get this from Ray Diaglo and from Tony's stuff and stuff like that. And he talks about Johnny's chocolate cake. I have an SOP to my chocolate cake. I know how to bake it.
Yeah.
To a T. I'm going to give you all the ingredients for baking my famous chocolate cake. With no SOPs. But here's all the ingredients and everything that needs to go. I didn't give you the amount, but here's all the ingredients. I make the best chocolate cake in the world, and I'm known for it. I'm going to give you all the ingredients and say, here, make the best chocolate cake. I guarantee you ain't going to make that best chocolate cake. You know why? Because in my SOP, I put a pinch of mustard that changes the flavor that you would never even know. That's why there's a bag of mustard there, but you don't even know how much to put in. But we're talking like a pinch. I use 2 grains of salt for every cookie. You know what I mean? Like for every piece of cake. So that SOP is how the Athena programs run. It's how the Green Planet Funding run. It's how the Canon programs run. It's how all of these programs all have those 2 millimeter tweaks. They all have SOPs to every gardener, to every LP, to the guy that's growing the quads of that killer weed that is out of this world. He has a standard operating procedure to get there. You think he just wung it and he just got it out of fluke? He had an SOP. He knew exactly what he was doing and how he was going to get there. And that's what an SOP is all about, guys. So you can get the same results over and over and over again, right?
And that's the whole purpose of having an SOP, is to recreate those results. That's what the scientific method is really about. It's being able to duplicate and duplicate and duplicate the same result.
And a lot of people have their little tweaks within their system, and they don't write it down, and they never get back to where they were. Because, well, back in the days, it had to stay in here.
Yeah.
Right? So I know when I was winning cups in 2010, I knew roughly what I was putting. Why? Because I wrote it all down in my books. From my Massive to Green Planet to how much Procal I used. to everything, to my little added. I used I can picture the bottle, but I use certain things with kelp in it, right? So I mean, I use 4 different lines of products. On top of that, some stuff underneath the cupboard, right? I even used to take pictures of people's food, and I have pictures of their food, but I had no idea how they were feeding it.
Yeah.
So what are you getting?
And then you're looking at their water is different than your water. Where are the other tweaks?
And this is why you could take the same strain and the same nutrients and give it to the same different people in different regions, and out of 10 people, they all grow the same strain with the same nutrients. All 10 will be different.
Yep.
I've had 2 different strains that are identical. Third strain, 2 people other grew it, and then we grew it, and it's like, then you know what strain they grew, because their SOPs were completely different. And they had different watering system. They had different nutrients. They had different ways of doing things. So when you write down your programs, make sure you do the same thing, not once, not twice, 3 times a charm. And after 3 times it ain't working, then start changing it and change 1 parameter. Don't change 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Because you never know. You got no idea. That's why a lot of these SOPs are years in the work. And that's why people pay big for feeding programs that we spent years working on. Because you don't know them unless you have an SOP behind. Come on. He's got a standard operating procedure. When the door comes in the back, he is expecting a treat. Ooh, I said that very low so he didn't hear me because he was walking. Oh, okay. He's like, what did he say, Dad?
Yes, that T word comes out and you're in trouble, brother. Okay, you're in trouble now.
Your farmer really needs to listen to this. It is so important to have those procedures. When I was looking at the Certicraft programs, there's stuff that Health Canada requires is by the drop. You got to know every parameter that's going into your feeding schedules, how it's going in, what's going in, when it's going in. Like these SOPs these days are run by sophisticated programs.
Chat GPT?
Well, and I know one thing I was talking with Greg Gardner, Matt, and he goes, they spend, in a 5-day period, they spend at least a half a day implementing all of this data into the program. So now the job isn't really feeding, it's implementing the information into the programs so it's feeding properly. Those programs go directly to Health Canada so you know exactly what your SOP is. And that way, if something goes wrong with that garden or something's happening or someone's getting sick, they can pull that SOP, find out what's going into that, find out what happened to it, and then have that batch tested. Understand how important an SOP is in the legal industry, because we're all come from the legacy industry. How many people here are in the legal industry? Listen to us talk. You guys got your shit up your CEO's ass, sorry, because you're listening to what they're telling you your SOPs are, and they don't even know what the hell they're doing. What's great about now is the corporate is learning, because the SOPs from the OGs and from the legacy market and the guys that have been doing it for the last 30, 40 years, what's your SOP? Put me in a room and I'll put it together. You just write down what I do. How about that? Now you got an SOP. I go to my buddy who's been growing for 35 years. I said, I need an SOP. He says, follow me around the room.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. Write down what I do. Do what I do. That's why when we have someone come to our garden, we train them. We have a trainer. You have an apprenticeship. The apprenticeship, and the apprentice is going to do what? Take notes. They're going to write things down. They're going to put their binder together. Go figure, eh, Ken? Putting the binder together?
Yeah. And actually, like, I worked security for years, and that was one of the things. You had a wall of binders with standard operating procedure. If A happens, grab this binder. This is what you have to do.
Garage. Right? Tells me what's going on in my garage. Oh, what's this? Terpenes. Go figure it. Certified analysis of what my testing results were. Right? My outcomes, what's going on in here. I will grow with my Vajra long-term cures with best practices. Oh, this is This is my book on long-term cures and best practices. Here you guys go. Here's all the pages. It's all finished. You can see I've gone through it.
Yeah.
So and this is best practices, and this is actually going to be published for the end of the year, guys. Just so you know, it's
cool.
And I did that by reading my books that I wrote down for the last 20 years. My understanding and seeing how I was able to see what the difference was in those parameters. Why? Because I wrote down fluctuation times in my room, temperature, humidity spikes. I told you I have these days. I know when temperature spikes in my room. I know I get humidity spikes. I know I had all of these things. And with that, I charted it and I talked about it in all of my videos of what we did. We wrote down humidity fluctuations. I was legal, so I wrote down everything. I didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
All right. So at that point, I was writing down temperatures. I wrote down humidity fluctuations. Lights come on and off. What's going on there? Two humidifiers, so I wouldn't have to chase that, right?
Yeah.
So everything comes down to procedure. That's what this is. The standard operating procedure on how to run a store.
Mm-hmm.
See all the highlights? Right? This is your handbook. That's what this one is. That's a handbook.
Yeah.
It's a handbook to run a retail store in BC.
Mm-hmm.
You have a handbook to run your life. You have a handbook and SOP to run your garden. Everybody needs a standard operating procedure just for their everyday. That's why I have a daily journal. All right. And then in here, all my standard operating procedures to what I do every day, right?
Yeah.
And then
you guys see how busy, how filled in that time calendar is? That's the time block.
At the end of the day, I wrote down the main key points in my journal so I know exactly to move on to. Right? How do I know? People ask me, how do you know? I wrote it down. And then they go, oh, yeah, you must be right. I know I am. I put it down on paper. What's the date? Here, I can find out. I'm very scheduled because you need to be. If you want it in life, 10x your life. Don't 2x it. I'm on the 11x team right now, just so you know. I have a standard opportunity for everything I do. Everything. Get up in the morning. I do my morning walks. I do my morning talks. 5 till 6, 6 till 7. Staff 7 till 8. 8 till 9. I'm scheduled. Right. I got an 11 o'clock today. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
I'll be coming out of here 1 minute before because I'm going right into another meeting.
Yep.
Standard operating procedure for my Mondays. What do you have for your day? What are you doing in your room? What are you doing in your life? What are you writing? What is your daily? What are your goals? We talked about it. Write down your 42 top goals that you want to attain in the next 10 years. Out of those top 42, write down how many years it's going to get to those goals. Make sure you put ones in there they're attainable goals too.
Yeah.
And then what do? A standard operating procedure. How are you going to get them?
Yeah. And who's going to help you get there?
You. Only
You're
you.
the one responsible.
You can find out who's going to help you.
Yeah.
Don't worry about how. Don't get caught in the tyranny of how because you'll never get there. Look at your who's, your what's, and your why's.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to do it. That's it. The how is you. There is no other how. If you keep going, how am I going to get there? Then I don't know. How? You. There's only one person who's going to write your SOP.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you want to follow somebody else's, right?
So then you have to make the choice. Are you a leader or are you a follower?
Well, I'm a leader. I want a company, my own business, my own life. We already know that.
Yeah. And look at Tony.
Choice.
Yeah.
I work for me. Actually, I work for everybody. That's the joyous of being able to put in what you want to do. And I'm blessed to be able to be where I am. Mr. Toad, he has a standard operating procedure to everything he does. Guaranteed. 100%. How he cleans his wheelchair to everything. He knows how he does things.
Oh, you're muted, Tony.
He has a standard operating.
It makes it easier for not guessing. If you're guessing at everything, you're bound to make a mistake almost every damn time. So you got to figure shit out.
That's where experience comes into play. Experience normally happens Because what? Problems. Problems come with experience.
Yeah, if you're not actually doing something, you can't have a problem. Then you're never going to learn, and then you're just
Experience is usually a result of what? Bad judgment. And bad judgment is usually a result of experience.
Yeah.
Crazy 8, right? Morpheus.
He wants to go back out.
Well, yeah, he's waiting for something.
Well, you did mention the T word, you know.
He sits right there.
Hey, Morpheus.
Yeah, you know what, guys? It's really important. I know that I let the cat out, actually.
Yes.
In full purr too. Routine is everything for me, so I don't take care of the routine. Everything falls apart. 7:05 this morning. I'm with Giselle. Got to go do my stretching. I'm in my meetings this morning. Boom. I'm going to my daily stretching. Mind if I share how many sit-ups I did today?
Sure, please.
I started with 2. I did 250 sit-ups this morning. I know. I was pretty bummed. 250 crunches. Boom, boom, boom. 250. Wow. You know what?
Shit.
I have a standard operating procedure every day. I do my morning walks. I come home and I stretch. And that's why I could barely do 2 push-ups. Now it's nothing to do 20.
Mm-hmm.
I keep pushing. How about my dad at 82 years old? See him doing push-ups yesterday? He's up to 12 now. Remember 2 weeks ago? Right? Because now he has an standard. Health is wealth. And how good is a push-up for you? Google it. They'll tell you. Push-ups is probably the best thing you can do for your upper weight and your natural ability to strengthen yourself. Because you're pushing your own natural weight. You're not trying to push a dumbbell. You're pushing your life.
Mm-hmm.
Push your life. Put your standard operating procedure in. Write down your goals and roles. Your whys. And we'll talk about a vision and how you get there next week.
Well, which is Sunday, guys, on John's channel. We actually that is next week's topic for the Sunday show. So you guys need to check that out and try to join live on there as well. And that's at 4:20 Pacific.
Nights at 4:20.
Yep.
We already know we're getting ready. I've already done my push-ups because I'm not going to start at 40 to do push-ups because no interest. I'll do my own push-ups. If you guys want to do them, go ahead. People go at 6 o'clock, do push-ups. Like, no. Mm-hmm. But I will stretch. Right?
You did post your push-ups. Go back in and I want to just make sure that you've posted your push-ups because we have this tendency.
No, not yet. I didn't hit.
Cool.
Thanks, Ken.
So yeah, we got to make sure that John's SOP stays on track, and that's the same with all of us, myself included. Very much so. Is writing it down and then actually following it, revisiting it every day until you know it so well you don't have to think about it. And that's how we learn. That's how we learned to walk. That's how we learned how to talk. And Tony has operating procedures that he has in his life for everything that he wants to accomplish in life. Tony, what's something on the grow side that you do every time you look at your plants?
I'm always in there to make sure there's no pests or anything showing up or any plants that start to look sickly. They need to be removed out of the garden to take away from other plants first off. It usually starts off earlier than that. Like I'm about to start a breeding project. My tent's empty, you can see. I'm going to be putting plants in there, and I want to make sure that they have no pests. I'm going through an IPM strategy at the moment where they'll get first they get washed with a Bavaria bassiana 5 days ahead of a sulfur wash. Okay. And then after that, they get completely washed off. So they'll go through a 10-day cycle of the plants getting cleaned up. No matter what's wrong with them, even if nothing's wrong, this will ensure that nothing wants to come to them during the veg cycle because of the terpene profile that the plant's giving off from the sulfur and that bacteria there breaking down pretty much all the soft body bugs and that wash getting rid of anything that could have been a residue that's left there. And I'm on that process right now. Then they'll all get transplanted into their final pots. and put in there with the correct cycle on there. Before I start that, because it's a reversal, I'm already getting the donor plant ready. It's going to be getting sprayed 7 days prior to going into flower. And then I'll spray it one more time at flower, and it should have no problem reversing.
Cool.
And then once it's in there, the females will be placed in flower 14 days later. And they should match up with the time period, since I'm putting all the plants in there that basically flower around the same cycle. They're all related that's going in there in some fashion.
Cool.
They either have the same male, or they've got like a grandparent that's the same. It's a bunch of herb that I bred, except for one plant, which is the pure Kush. It's going in there also. I'm going to be continuing its gene pool through with the feminization. But it's a process. I don't just throw plants in there because I don't need to be running into bugs and pests in the middle of a seed production run and end up having to throw plants out, which costs a lot of money to run and also is going to cost a lot of time. You would have to do that in another period to make the same set of seeds. May not happen with reversals. You might get a plant that just doesn't want to flip easily. You may get a plant that drops too soon, and it makes the pollination window not be conductive to making enough seeds. So there's a lot of different things to go into when you're doing the feminization project I'm about to do, and for anybody else that tries it.
Okay, that was more information than I'm capable of taking in one breath. Okay, thanks, Tony. Man, he's like, yeah, okay. I'm glad I'm not a seed breeder, so I'm still learning all this stuff, man.
Well, there's a lot of stuff to breeding seeds. Either if you're doing a regular seed production with a male and a female, or if you're doing a feminization project through females. The female plant produces ethylene in a higher amount, and you're trying to block the production of ethylene in a specific time. And when you can do that, the plant will phenotype will switch over and give you a staminate flower on a pistillate female, and then the pollen sometimes doesn't drop naturally. So you may have to go through a process of manually separating the flowers. And it's all dependent on genetics and the cultivar you're using. Some plants release pollen extremely easy, and some plants do it on a very small scale. So when you're doing feminization, it's much harder to do, even though the seed produced from it is a better seed for a normal farmer to start with, especially an indoor grower, because now they don't have to search through males, especially if you got plant counts in specific areas. And if you don't want to go over a plant count, you can guarantee yourself getting a female from these seeds without having to lose half of the plants you just grew for 2 months, ending up with males, or maybe even your whole garden having to, again, restart. It's a way to ensure that patients and farmers have a way to kind of jumpstart the system. You can have a phenotype that's going to be closer together than if you did a regular male to female because of the way the chromosomes cross. So you're going to get a more stable representation out of some of those plants than you would have the other way. So it's going to be easier for them to fill the garden with plants that are the same size, finish at the same time. Yeah. Breeding's got a lot of stuff to it.
Well, yeah, no doubt. Pemmon River actually had a question on that. How often and how long do you spray the STS on a female?
I'm going to do it 2 times. The plant that I'm working with reverses pretty easily. My one-hitter quitter. I've had it reverse with 1 spray. So what I'm trying some experiments with it since I've already used it. I'm going to put 3 cultivars in there and spray it one way, which is 3 times, but it's a 7 days before, on the day of flip, and 7 days after. The other one that I use is the product's not got dilution at any rate. It goes 1-to-1, and you spray the plant 1 time. Some plants will take it and give you the pollen very easily. So this plant for me gives pollen easily. I wanted to see if the mix that I have again will give me the same amount of pollen, which I know it will. And then the third one will be there's one that's been out for a long time that's a 4-to-1 ratio, and people usually use the wrong method, using the wrong ratio of silver and sodium thiosulfate. So I'm going to attempt the one that I use, and then I'll record this one and show it to everyone. I've done it before where I've showed them how to mix up the mix, spray the plant 3 times, and then actually produce the seeds. I showed that grow live on YouTube back in the day.
Cool.
And it works well. Just sometimes people don't have the patience or the SOP like we're talking about to do the sprays on the right day. So having the ability to do it with one spray is easier than having to remember I got to do it 7 days here and then on this day and 7 days later something may come up. Again, they may just forget. You could just be high, shit's happened. So you don't want to introduce stress by spraying at the wrong time or having a failure. So that's why I'm trying this method one more time. This will be the 3rd time with the single spray for me.
Okay. Well, yeah, you'll definitely have to let us know how it works, and then what that male is going to bring you, that strain is going to bring you because you've done it so many times, right?
I made the plant, so it's my one-hitter quitter. I've grown it for now 3 years as the female. I've tested it for viroids and viruses. It's clean on that. I've had it tested for whether or not it's a THC or CBD dominant cultivar. It's a THC dominant cultivar. So I've passed it around to multiple people around the country, and the seed stock's been grown in multiple countries, from Canada to England, all over the place. It's been around. And I've given the clone I have to multiple people so I could find out what it actually brings to them, not just to what it brings to me. And everybody likes it. It's a killer plant that's bug resistant and pathogen resistant because of the terpene profile it possesses. The plant smells like the old metal black markers when we were kids, the big fat thick ones. Propellant that comes out of those things. It's like a paint propellant and gas. It's extremely strong. So and I've reversed it already twice in test mode, not to breed with. I've already wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to waste time trying to breed with it and no pollen would come from it. So that's why I said I've tested it twice with the 3 spray method. And during one of those, I did it with the 2 spray method, and all of them have worked so far. So that cultivar being very easy to reverse. If I do it with 1 spray and the ratios that I'm expecting to use, then anyone can do it. It's going to be something that's very easy, especially if I show it on video form to do. Pass the clone around. It's there to represent everyone. Nesmond's smoking some right now. Nesmond knows what's up. Yeah, the one-hitter quitter is nice. I'm going to hit that back to its progeny, which is the Ghost of one-hitter quitter, which has a Ghost OG back cross is the male. So it'll be the Ghost Kim Dog Special Reverb times the Star Dog, which is it's Tress Dog times fucking Kim 4. Okay. So that plant's gonna be just old school gassy style weed. Like that's what I'm smoking right now.
I need some of that right now.
Get you stoned to the bone, man. And so that's what the cultivator does and possesses. So I'm hoping that most of that, at least the pest resistant, passes over, because the terpene profiles aren't going to switch up automatically. All these plants smell like gas, propane, garlic, like just funky old school weed, and the terpenes that they breed are already known to pass through on most of the cultivars that I'm using. So it's just going to continue to get funkier weed. And in the fem style, it's easier for people to get 10 seeds of that instead of 10 regular seeds. Like I've had someone get all males out of a 10 pack of seeds. I replaced them, but he still wasted like 3 months trying to figure out what all the seeds were. And he's like, man, that sucked. And I was like, yeah, I get it. Here, I'll send you more seeds. Like I can't change the fact that can happen. Like the odds of it happening is very high, but it happens. I've had it happen over I've been breeding for 30 years, and it's happened to probably a dozen or so times.
Oh, you got
no all males. It just happens. But I've also had people get all females out of a pack, and they're like, how do you do that, dude? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I think it has to do with the actual cluster bracts on the plant that produced it, because the plant produces different levels of ethylene throughout its system in different areas. There's a possibility that that plant had a higher amount of, say, ethylene and auxins at that node, and the bract section that produced from that node now produces more feminized seeds than the rest of the plant, where it could have a lower ethylene level and a higher gibberellic acid level. And that possibly could be what's causing that plant to be able to pass the Y chromosome into the seed stock easier than when the auxins are up higher. That's how you feminize a female plant. You block ethylene through the you're trying to increase a copper passing through instead of ethylene, and that plant will produce a male flower on a female. And then whether or not it gives a lot of pollen is just like genetics. Some give us copious amount and some do not. So you really have to learn the plants that you have, or you have to do research on other people, because there's few people out there that have put lists together that tell you at what ratios and what levels you should be spraying this stuff, how to make it, and how to safely use it. Like, don't be making gallons of it. Make enough for the project you're using by just doing a little bit of math and a calculator, and a couple 15 minutes will give you the exact amount for weight. So you could spray maybe just 50 milliliters because you're doing a small clone. Let's say instead of 400 milliliters, because I'm going to do a multiple expressions in a room. Like, I'm going to put 10 females and spray all 10 of them of the same clone, so I have a larger pollen dose, like maybe I'm doing a greenhouse. But you don't want to have a ton of silver floating around, because you don't want to dispose of it anywhere near a water source. It's you should be taking it to have disposed of as a poison at your local refuse if there's too much of it. That's why doing a smaller batch is always better than doing a larger batch. You don't want to have double what you need. You just want to maybe have 10% more. You can always spray 10% more on that plant until it's gone. Having too much and just not knowing what to do with it is not a good thing.
Biohazard. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
John, you were saying something?
Was I saying something?
I thought you were trying to say something there, so
I might have.
that was a really good rip on that bong then, because your mind is just went whoosh.
Well, it was tasty. I really enjoyed it. That's for sure. And then because John's like,
John.
like, I'm copying, I'm taping away, because I'm like looking at doing this event for 420, not looking at doing it. And I got some people who are really interested in it, so I'm sending pitch decks and getting things going. And just so you guys know, there's a special moment in time that happens for all of us stoners. For the 420 lovers. Who here likes 420? Tony? No?
Yeah, man. I have a friend whose wife's birthday at 420.
You know what? Well, think of this time.
One of the elders.
In a time ever in history of mankind, does a certain moment happen. And it happens at 420, 2024 at midnight. Because at midnight, the clock's going to read 4, 20, 24. That's 420 back and forth. And what do we call that, Ken?
Oh gosh. Brain part.
A paradigm.
Paradigm.
So a paradigm is going to happen, and it's a 420. I mean, this is the best. I've been screaming 420, 1 minute warning, since I've been planning this day for over a decade. And I said, you know what? On that day, I'm going to have the biggest party. We're going to celebrate the cannabis community and just throw it all out there. Well, this is happening. This is going to be happening with an outdoor smoking lounge. It's all fully covered and stuff like that. There's going to be a live cannabis cup that will be outside. It'll be all fully done. There'll be a music event with some pretty big headline to be announced. The main headliner that you're all going to love. It will completely sell out. It'll be like, wow, one of those wow moments. It'll be a morning, afternoon event with a music event and a celebrating 420 live at midnight. And at midnight, we're going to give our respects to the ones that brought us to where we are.
Cool.
And that second, remember the ones that got us to where we are today. And where we're going with the industry and how far it has escalated. And take a look back at where we were and the inspiration that got us to where we are. And celebrate, Dr. Paul Hornby and Michelle Rainey and Jason Wilcox and Horatio and Greg Williams. And these are my friends that we lost in our cannabis community just recently, from Bert, from Randy Kane, from Cara. These are some pretty major activists and players that are here in Vancouver. These people are all over the world, and we all know them. Let's celebrate their moment in time for them and for us. Yes, it's the time of freedom. It is. And that's what we're celebrating. So join us along with this amazing event. And if you can't come to ours, create your own. Create that special moment around the world. It's only going to happen once in the existence of time, humanity, and you get the opportunity to be there. Wow. Yeah, that's what I'm working on, guys. Thank you for allowing me to share that with you.
You're welcome. We all need to come together with that caring, sharing, and community. You're creating this amazing event. And like you said, everybody else out there that can, if you don't have one local to you, you can't make one, create one. This is where the standard operating procedure and goals come in, is, make the goal, set out the how you're going to get there. That's your standard operating procedure, and then move forward. And this is a wonderful goal for everybody that is, in the cannabis industry and part of this community, to, have a 4/20/2024, because like John said, it's a once in an existence kind of a day, time.
Yes. I'm sorry, I'm typing and I lost track of what you're saying. Love you.
See, that's okay, John. I'm used to that. I've been married for 30 years.
I'm excited for the community. I'm excited for this time and this moment. It's written down everywhere. I even have a binder over here. It's kind of fun. I've been working on this for months, right? So it's really looking at celebrating where we are. And the world needs legalization. The world needs our help. I always say we're the dream team, green team for the world. All of us, everyone here, to help really unlock the full potential of this plant. Mm-hmm. It's a fuel, it's a food, it's a fiber, it's our fucking medicine. They don't want to say that. And that's why someone asked me, great one, someone asked me why the Indigenous were written out of the Cannabis Act in Canada. So for one, they never had the choice to make they never had the right to make the choice. B, number two, with the Indigenous and what we look at around the world, it's a medicinal plant. For some reason, even though it's legal in Canada, they do not want to say it's medical. It's a recreational alcohol, and it is not. So we're here to celebrate this plant and the people, and so I'm on my rant right now. I'm having a good time. I did a bong rant. And I'm emailing people pitch decks and stuff like that and getting them to the information here and stuff, which is pretty cool. I can't talk when I'm typing. It's very interesting.
Well, it kind of breaks your train of thought, but we had another question from Pembina River. We'll throw it to Toad here. How long will it keep in the fridge? You're on mute.
What, pollen?
I think she's talking about the STS.
Silver thiosulfate. In 2 parts. That stuff, I've had it work after 2 years for me. But I would recommend that you don't, like, after 6 months, it's probably going to start losing some of its power. If you keep it in 2 parts, it lasts much longer. Once it's in 1 part, the silver can fall out of solution over time, or even actually start to plate the vessel that it's in. Like, I have a jar that, because I've used it so much for silver, it looks like I've
electroplated it.
Yeah, it looks like it's been electroplated with silver or gold, because of how much silver that I've had in there in the ionic form. I've made quite a bit over the years. I use a brown glass jar for both of them, and then I have this old Clorox brown glass jar. On my property, there's a spot where people used to dump old glass jars back in like fucking 1800s or 1890s and shit. And we dug up this jar. It's a weird amount. It's like 42 ounces. It's not like a standard amount. And it's super thick glass. I've been using that thing for like 20 years to make STS and store it. And just before I'm going to use it, but I really don't need it to put it in that vessel unless I'm mixing them. And once it's mixed, part A and part B, I put it in that, and when I'm ready to go, I have it ready to go. I don't need to be mixing it the night I'm going to do it. Like, for instance, I have a bottle of it right next to me. And this is what I'll be using to reverse the plant. And that's all I need to reverse like 4 plants. It's I want to say this one's 150 milliliters, this bottle. And it makes very fine micro mist. And that's what you really want, is the very small particles to penetrate the node. You don't need to spray the whole plant. You just spray the nodes that you really want reversed. And the plant will give you different amounts of pollen based on how much ethylene is produced in its system during that period.
Okay, well, that's good to know. So, guys, we're coming right up to the hour here. I know Johnny's got to run because he's got another appointment. So, this afternoon we have William Padilla Brown, or no, that's next week. Sorry. This afternoon we have Tom Landry and a couple of other of his friends that are organic growers in Canada, commercial growers growing organically, with Leighton this afternoon on the Soil Matters. The ladies have not given me their guest for Thursday. I'll get back to you on that, hopefully on Wednesday's show with Andy. And the Grow Show is going to start tomorrow, probably 9 a.m. or it'd be 8 a.m. Pacific.
And I'm sending you some seeds too, so you got to make sure I get that proper address today, so they go up for you.
Okay, I will make sure that you have that. And yeah, we're gonna run John seeds and probably a couple others, something from Tony, and I have a list that we're gonna go over tomorrow with seeds that I've had from Cali Connect and that for years in my freezer. We're gonna pick one of those and we're gonna try to run 5 strains in the grow. Anyway, awesome, guys, we're gonna end the stream right there. I love you all, and don't forget.
SOPs.
Yeah. And I'm ending the stream.